bounce their eyes back and forth on an interview, they're looking like that. Always look at the eye that is directly closest to camera for your focal point.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
It steadies your eye.
Oh, how does it help?
And it also opens up, because you see more of the white of your eye on camera. Okay, I am ready. So I'll count you down. So what'll happen is I'm going to start it, and I'm going to say 3, 2, and then I'll point you further go. Okay? All right, hold on a second.
And Yana, you can just do a little vocal introduction. So we're here today to do this, boom, boom, and I'll start with the questions.
Okay, great. And we're going in 3.
So we're here today to do an on-camera interview with Priya, where the main subject of the interview is going to be about MBA interview. I'm going to be the interviewer as the dean of the business school, and Priya is going to be the applicant who is trying to apply for Rutgers for her MBA degree. So we'll get started right now.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Priya.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I was looking at your applications and I find it very impressive. And I just want to maybe start by asking you a little bit about yourself. Can you just tell me some highlights about your background and experiences?
Sure. Thanks for bringing me here, though. And so I graduated from UMDNJ with a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. And then following my graduation, I was working as a postdoctoral fellow in oncology space in academia for about 7 years. And then after 7 years of my postdoc experience, I kind of gathered that was not the space I wanted to be for the rest of my life. So in order to gain more experience in the business side of the industry, I decided that I would like to go back to business school and gain more skills and some leadership qualities. And so in conversation with some of my colleagues who had pursued this route, I started applying to business school, and Rutgers Business School has been one of my top choice, and that's why I'm here today.
Great. Well, since you mentioned that Rutgers Business School is one of your top choice, so I was curious, why do you choose Rutgers?
Well, actually, there are a couple of reasons. The first being that Rutgers Business School is one of the top business schools. I believe it's top 10 in the pharmaceutical and healthcare MBA.
Great, you've done some of your research.
Oh, thank you. And so that's primarily one of the reasons, and my passion has been in the healthcare industry, and that's something, excuse me, and that's something I have been wanting to continue with as my career. And secondly, I'm from New Jersey, so for me, I do have a family, and I would probably not want to relocate. And having the choice of having the pharma MBA in Rutgers, I couldn't think of a better option than Rutgers Business School.
Okay, great, wonderful. And also, you mentioned that in your applications you managed a team before. I found it very interesting. And I was just wondering, when you were working with a team, did you ever have to deal with a difficult person? And if you have, could you just tell me a little bit about the situation and how do you manage that?
Sure. So it was, just to give you a little perspective, I was managing a small team of people. So I was leading a team of 3 people. And so I was responsible for coming up with the proposals. It was a research institute that I was working for. So I had to come up with the research proposal and delegate the responsibility to the rest of my team, and was responsible for executing the project as well. So there was a research fellow who was actually working for me, and we were in a team together. And she was a graduate, a degree holder, but didn't come with a lot of experience. So I kind of noticed that when she first joined my team, there was a delay phase. And for us in the research area, delegating and executing responsibilities on a time basis, and being on the timeline and executing it is very important. So over time, over a few months, I kind of realized that she wasn't on top of the pace, and I sort of had a one-on-one meeting with her and figured out that she was very interested in learning, but she was hesitant to bring it up to me. And from that point, I kind of guided her, set her for some development training processes, and within next month or so, she was up and running full speed.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks.
Excellent. You're definitely a very strong candidate.
Oh, thank you.
Since you're going to, if you're going to be, in Rutgers for your MBA, this is a question I always ask all my candidates. We believe in people who has a future plan and who has, more of a precise direction of where they want to go about their future. So my question to you is, where do you see yourself in 10 years from now on?
That's a great question. All the 10 years is quite a long time, but the reason I'm coming back to business school after graduating from my PhD degree is I would like to be a future leader in the industry, and I feel that Rutgers Business School can provide me with that skill set, and that's how I envision myself in 10 years from now, that I would head a small team and then, be in a leadership position and take it from there.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And we're running out of questions, and so that will be the end of the interview. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you very much. Here's
Good, great job. I was hoping Priya would make a mistake and accidentally glance to the side or something, and we could have a big, oh, didn't that look weird? But she was so engaged with her interviewer. I think she really realized that the power of this interview, as we were watching it on the screen, was how much she was connecting with her interviewer. And this gives you a sense of how awkward it can be when there's a room full of people staring at you. And what the important takeaway is that you had a sincere connection with someone who was sitting 3 feet away from you. And I think Priya really just captured that by forgetting about us and concentrating on the person who was interviewing her. And like I said, she didn't really give us too many learning opportunities because she never tilted her head to the wrong way, and we didn't see anything awkward on the screen. But with that, any other comments? Any other thoughts, Vanessa?
I thought the interaction between you two was, what's your name?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it was really, really good. They kind of fed off of each other. I noticed that the way she framed the questions was very conversational. So it wasn't like, tell me about yourself. It was, I usually ask candidates this question, or you just said this. Can you talk to me more about that? So it felt like she was trying to put her in a nice, relaxing mood, and Priya's tone was really soft. I wanted to hear more. So I thought it was really good interaction between them.
Yeah, well, good interaction. I was wishing she would ask a difficult question that would frustrate her, and we could see on camera, oh, it looked abrupt when we saw it on the screen, but none of that happened. So, well, maybe we can get some really nasty questions in the next interview.
I have
yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
What do you do in this case when you have hand gesture?
Oh, okay, so that was an interesting one. I noticed every once in a while we saw a hand on the screen. I would say it looked a little awkward when I saw it because it was just every once in a while a hand coming up and down. It wasn't a huge deal, but I would say just try to keep the animation and keep the sincerity without using your hands, because when they end up in the wrong spot, they may look a little awkward.
Would it have been less awkward if the camera?
Yes,
Okay.
if the camera frame had changed,
Yeah, had
yes.
camera on torso. Would it have been less awkward when she did this?
Yes.
Yeah, because we would have seen the full engagement of it. It wouldn't just be a hand coming up and then disappearing every once in a while. Yes, Liv?
Unrelated, well, indirectly related. I had a hard time watching the screen because I don't know if anybody saw this. I could hear her before
The sound.
the sound, and so it gave me a little bit of a headache.
Oh, okay.
I'm a little bit like that. So I was just watching her. I couldn't concentrate on watching her.
Yeah, I thought about that as that was happening, but I think the takeaway for this class is to concentrate on the screen and see if we see anything that teaches us something.
No, yeah,
So,
I'm not saying it wasn't the learning thing. I'm just
yeah.
commenting.
No, I thought of that exactly that. I thought, well, it's a little difficult to watch the screen,
Very
but
slow.
we'll just try our best. Okay, great. Let's go do the next interview, and then we'll get into the press conference after that.
So our interview is information interview, and this interview will tell people about how to give some suggestion about how to apply the MBA program to Rutgers Business School, and also some information about living in New Jersey. Okay.
So I'll count you in. So it'll be 3.
Okay, so welcome to another information interview with our candidate Wen from Rutgers Business School, and she is alumni of Rutgers Business School, and she will graduate in this May 2016. Hi, Wen.
Hi, Erin.
I say hello to our audience.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So you are from Rutgers Business School. So can you tell us more about? Is it difficult to get into Rutgers Business School? And normally, how many international students they admit every year?
I think it's not too hard to get into RBS if you meet the average level of our current students. For example, the GMAT score, and if you have a good work experience and you show your passion for Rutgers, you will get into it, I think. For the international students, I think Rutgers now have more and more international students. In my class, about 1/3 of the students are international.
Okay, excellent. So next question is, we audience talk about that. They found there are a lot of campers in Rutgers. So do you know which campus is this MBA program located?
Yeah, obviously I know. We have a lot of campuses, right? Like New Brunswick, Newark, and Canada, and RBS building located in Newark. Most of our MBA class we will have are in Newark campus, but you can also choose some class that takes in New Brunswick.
Okay, so you mentioned Newark. I searched from the internet that Newark is not a very safe place to live or something like that. Can you talk us about that?
Yeah, honestly, Newark is not a safe city, as you know. Yeah, as a student, we can receive the alert of robbery almost every day from our public security department. But trust me, if you take care, it's not a big problem. It shouldn't be a reason that you give up Rutgers.
So, do you live in Newark or some
No, I
towns?
live in Harrison, which is very close to RBS building. As I know, not many students live in Newark.
Okay, so they choose better is to live and they just go.
Harrison is very safe.
Okay, excellent. So, also Newark is a city so near to New York City. So is that an advantage to seek a job?
Yeah, I think it's a big advantage because compared to other cities, New York City will provide you more opportunities. There are many career fairs happens every month in many startup companies. If you want to seek a job in cities, I think Rutgers is a good choice for you.
So excellent. So we also want to know some about money issues. So how much do you usually spend on the rent apartment each month?
Yeah. For me, the rent is about $600 per month. If you live in Harrison or Kearney, which are very close to Newark campus, I think the average rent is about $500. But it also depends. If you want to live in some better community, the rent can be as high as $1,000 a month.
Okay. Also, our audiences say that a lot of them don't want to cook every day. So, I just want to ask you about: is it easier to eat outside and the price is okay, or just a little bit expensive? Then you just cook it by yourself.
I think the price is okay, but there are not too many choices.
Okay, so there are nice restaurants in the town where you live in Harrison?
Yeah, there are not too many restaurants in Harrison. but you can eat in the school's cafeteria. It's good.
Oh, really? Can you tell us about, do you have a meal plan we can choose from the rugby school, or you just go there buy the stuff by yourself?
You mean the meal plan?
Yeah.
You can choose.
So you
can
don't
choose
use-
whatever you want.
Okay, so you don't use that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you to be here today, and we appreciate your information to share with us. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Good, excellent. Comments for this about this interview?
I think it was very, it was a good conversation rather than an interview. Like it's not a very strict interview, and that's how informational interview should be like.
Okay. All right. Other comments? Josh?
I thought at the very beginning, when I was looking at, I think the lights or something real quick, like back and forth, but then she settled into the actual conversation.
Yeah, did anyone notice her eyes before the questioning started? She's going back and forth, and it looked very abrupt on the screen. Like, what's going on? Am I being attacked? We're worried. We're worried for her safety when we see her on the big screen. It's that truth times 10. That tiny eye movement made us wonder what was going on in that studio. Other comments? Yes.
I think if maybe given the background, the informational session is okay, but it's just she's keeping on turning like switching chairs and moving her body, so you can feel it's very casual. But I guess if you're just doing a very formal interview, we probably better stay still.
Yeah. Well, I think we want her still even here,
Okay.
right? Because it was a little distracting. Like she was moving her eyes a little bit at the first, and there was still, I didn't notice too much, I was concentrating on some other things, but at least one person noticed some body movement that was distracting. That even though it's a light subject, we still would have wanted a stable body stance for more effective. Let's talk about this casual tone. So it was a casual tone. My thought was, she became aware of us in the room as the audience. And Eric even joked about it, like say hi to the audience. I felt like she was aware when she was answering the questions that she was talking to us and we could understand her because we were in the room with her. And I feel like she forgot that the point is the one-way conversation with the television audience. I just didn't think she was working that hard to really portray to someone who wasn't in the room. And I think part of that was understandable because we were all here, we kind of laughed at some of the stuff, and we got it because we were in the room. But I think someone who doesn't know Rutgers, someone who's not an MBA student, someone who's not in this room would look at the tape of that interview and say, I'm really not getting a full flavor. And we can't really play, we don't have time to play the thing back and pretend you're not Rutgers students, but I think if we did, you'd say, you know, this is just not bringing me in. This is not someone who's really working to engage. In contrast to our last interview, and Priya really zeroed in on that interviewer and created that one-way conversation with the television audience. And it's understandable, and it's a stage of development, but I think this is an example of one that didn't go far enough. Any other thoughts? All right, so let's do our press conference. So Josh is going to make a prepared statement, and we've got a couple of interviewers who are going to ask some questions.
He's standing.
Yeah, you want to stand?
Yeah,
For-
I'll get a podium or a
Yeah,
teleprompter maybe.
Podium. We could pull this. We could pull this table out for you, or we could use. What could we do? Yeah. Let's do this. Pull that. No teleprompter. Oh yeah. You just have to flash cards.
You can put
Yeah.
the chair on top of the table.
Chair on top of the table. It's not a bad idea. Actually, why don't we just have you stand? Can you just have stand on the table? Is that okay? Okay. And you two are the
We're the
interviewers?
reporters, yes.
Okay.
Do we stand? Do we, does it matter?
This one right here.
Let's see.
So I gotta get the
Jerry,
lights and everything.
Jerry.
We'll have you.
We
You can stand or you can sit. You can even sit in the audience.
Stand right here.
You can just yell from the audience. Hey, you.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
About 30 seconds away.
Oh, take your time.
Be strong.
where you headed? I was ready.
And the two press people, one will stand here and one will stand here, on either side of the camera. I'll just get here for 1 second. Can you give me that tape real quick? Oh, thank you. I got it. Thank you. Great, thank you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to give this to you as if it is the actual microphone that you're using in the little podium presentations like that. All right, I am ready.
And you know, I'll tell you, and I hope this doesn't throw you off, but I'll tell you, you have the option to either talk to the audience in the press conference or talk directly to the camera. It's press conferences could be either way, and whatever you think is appropriate.
Great, so we're going to go in 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a very constructive meeting with the President today. We appreciate his deep concern and the deep concern he feels for the region, and you could hear from his speech today his frustration. I trust also that we, through this meeting, sense the President's sadness and the sorrow that we feel for this tragic accident that should never have occurred. BP has always met our obligations and our responsibilities, and we have made clear from the first moment of this tragedy that we will live up to all legitimate responsibilities. We have agreed today with the President on a framework that should assure the American people that we mean what we say. We will look after the people who have been affected, and we will repair the damage to this region, the environmental damage and the economic damage. We are announcing today, as you heard from the President, a $20 billion commitment to make sure that all appropriate claims are handled swiftly and handled fairly. We are also announcing an independent adjudicator, and that adjudicator will make sure that all the right people get the right money in the right time. The BP board is also announcing today their decision that we will not pay any further dividends this year. We made it clear to the President that words are not enough. We understand that we will and we should be judged on our actions. What has been clear today is that the administration and our company are fully aligned in our interest of closing the well, cleaning the beaches, and caring for all those who have been affected. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to apologize to the American people. On behalf of all the employees of BP, many of whom are living in the Gulf Coast, I do thank you for the patience you are all extending us at this difficult time. Through our actions and our commitments, we hope that over the long term we will regain the trust that you once gave us. Thanks, and I will take a couple of questions.
Question. Thank you, sir, for your statement. We appreciate you making yourself available to address some of the concerns. You talked a little bit about a lot of the commitment that you guys are putting forth, which we all think is great, but you were a little bit vague with some of the details. So if I can just ask, can you talk a little bit about the framework that you mentioned earlier? Can you give us some details as to what's behind that framework?
I don't know all the details at this moment. It's something that's just being hashed out. As I mentioned, there will be an independent source which is going to make a lot of these determinations in terms of who is most in need, most immediately, and how best to proceed in terms of giving out funds and making the repairs that need to be made to the Gulf Coast.
Okay, and the individual making that assessment, you said, is an independent?
Yes, that will not be handled by BP or the government directly. There will be an independent, adjudicator, and who will make these determinations, who will set a framework that is most fair and most timely.
Will that be the case for all other assessments or just for this particular project?
I can only speak to this project right now and the prompt response that we're trying to have in the Gulf region. And so that is our focus right now, and future endeavors will be governed by future needs.
Hey, Chairman, how long will it take for your company to plug the hole so to stop the oil spill?
Well, it's not clear at this point. We have teams working right now to get that done. As we spoke with the president, it's one of our top priorities beyond fixing the damage that has already been done, is making sure that no further damage is done. And as soon as it is at all possible, that will be handled.
Yeah, but do you have an estimated time, let's say
I-
3 months, half
I
year?
do not personally have that timeline. The people, the engineers and the experts who are handling that are the best in their field, and they will have it done as absolutely expediently as they can.
Okay, follow-up question. Shouldn't you have considered the possibility of these oil spills so that your company already developed the technology to master this oil spill accident?
We do always have contingency plans. There are always things that we have discussed and planned for. This is a disaster of an unprecedented nature, and so we are adapting as fast as possible to handle things. All the assets that we have in terms of surface containment and cleaning up are already in place, and we are developing new things to meet the new needs that this has presented to us.
So I think it's fair to say that the public wants to know who is responsible for this incident and how will they be held accountable. Can you speak to that?
Accountability is going to be something that is determined later, but right now engineers from both BP and from the government are currently looking at the situation, both to repair the damage that has been done to the well, to stop any further leakings, and as part of that they will determine what caused this catastrophe. I have no facts to give you right at this moment as to who you should point a finger at.
Okay, that's fair, but to say, I mean, we're sure that some things went wrong in this situation, so, you know, again, part of the public perception is who's gonna be held responsible, and eventually, what's gonna happen to them? You know, is it that the person responsible is gonna be asked to leave the company? We wanna make sure that whoever is to blame is not in a position to let this happen again.
Well, these are things that are going to have to be determined once we know more. I'm not going to start telling you that so-and-so is going to be fired or let go. There is no doubt people who are going to be held responsible, but we need to make sure that the right people are held responsible, and depending on what we discover about the failure, we'll lead our course of action in that.
And will you sort of keep the public abreast as you're going through that process?
I think at all points we're trying to be very clear and open about things. That's part of this conference today, and our meeting with the president was to have a very clear understanding of where we stand right now and where we're going to be moving forward. That's part of why we're setting from the outset this $20 billion aside, so that it is known from, again, the outset that this is not something we're taking lightly and something that we will be handling. So as we know more, we can allow other people to know more, but I can only tell you what I already have been briefed on.
Okay. Do you believe that the current safety standards of your company can prevent any further disasters?
Well, as I said before, this is an unprecedented failure of the equipment, and until we know exactly what went wrong, I can't say what our next step will be. But obviously, anytime there's a problem, we learn from it, we adapt, and our engineering teams will make the appropriate adjustments to ensure, to whatever possibility, that nothing like this ever happens again.
Okay. So can I say that there is no additional measures that your company will do right now to prevent further?
Until we have a better understanding of exactly when it went wrong, it would be premature to say what we're going to do to fix it.
Final question for me. Again, we appreciate your statement today, but I think what we're all wondering about are the 11 people who lost their lives in the process. I think it was the explosion. There were 11 people, I think, including BP employees who passed away. So the first question and a follow-up. The first is, what's going to happen with these individuals' families? What is your plan to address this? And lastly, what about the environmental impact that this incident is going to have? Have you given any thoughts to that?
Well, there's no question that this is both a human tragedy and an environmental tragedy. The BP team members who lost their lives, there is no greater immediate tragedy than the fact that their families have to suffer through that loss. But many of our family at BP consider the Gulf their home. They live and work there. And so we want to do right by them. That's part of this fund that we're setting aside. We will do everything in our power to mitigate and fix and correct any damage that has been done environmentally. And as far as the families are concerned, we will do what we have to do or what we can do to help them.
Does that include financial means?
That includes all the means that we have at our disposal. Thank you.
Good job. Yeah, I want Josh to represent my company if I spin or spill billions or millions of gallons of oil on the Gulf Coast.
Did they practice this or?
No.
No, we literally all just ran into it.
Yeah, Vanessa and Frank came up with some poignant questions, and they familiarized themselves with the scenario. Yeah. All right. So comments?
I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he talks like a reporter or.
Yeah, Josh had a very soothing voice. It was a serious tone.
Yeah.
That last question that Vanessa asked, that was interesting. So it's a final question for me. So we think it's going to be a softball. But then it's like, did you consider the 11 people who died? And have you thought at all about the environmental impacts? So, all right, so one, you're asking me about 11 people that died. I got to handle that seriously. But two, haven't we been talking about the environmental impacts this whole press conference? And now this is your last question. Have I considered that? But he didn't take the bait. He answered it very politely. It was that one-way, two-way conversation we talked about. Like, she's asking this difficult question right at the end, and he's a positive vibe, because all we see is a one-way conversation with him. Get Priya, you had a comment?
No, I actually was going to touch on this.
Sorry,
That's-
beat you to it.
That's all right.
So that's Priya's comment as well. Yeah,
Fall for it, Josh.
good tone of voice. Oh, one thing we did notice, or I noticed, is that Josh was looking down at his note cards. Did anyone notice how exaggerated that looked on the screen? Yeah. So, I mean, it's, we're practicing here. We can't expect you to memorize the whole thing just for a class exercise. But it's just an example of how that distracted us. And we're at points where we want to believe him because he's saying sincere things, apologies. We want to hear his true voice, so we do not want him looking down that often.
And you were,
I'm sorry.
to piggyback on that, you were actually much more grounded with the questions. That was harder than the pre-prepared speech. And we saw that because there was a slight drift. If you're shifting of your weight, if we were to play that back, you would see just a slight drift at the beginning. But when you got the questions, you stopped. So you actually came across more authoritative with the hardball questions than with your prepared statement.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still nonetheless very, very good. Very good use of the mic as well.
And I think this brings us back to something we talk about in class a lot. We want to communicate our genuine, true feelings, our sincerity. And with the prepared statement, especially with the looking down and up, it wasn't as sincere, it didn't ring as important and as true to us as with the questions, just like Alberto pointed out. There were some hands. Jan.
Yeah, I'd just like to quickly add, I really like the portion where he tried to answer the questions, because very often, I think he was asking for about, what are you going to do next? Specifically, like, how are you going to manage that? And he obviously, this conference was taking place right after the incident, so he doesn't really have much detail to actually provide an answer. But he still, said something and makes people feel that it will be managed properly.
Yeah. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Sure.
So in real life, does he get a teleprompter when you reach the stage?
I was trying to remember that. I had a link to the YouTube thing. I don't think he did. I think he pretty much memorized it, didn't he? He memorized it and delivered it very effectively. Probably because he had a presentation consultant saying you cannot look down at notes when you're giving this prepared statement. It's just not going to look right.
A comment for Josh. I thought he did. I was definitely trying to trap you a couple times. What was really interesting was anytime I said anything negative, like you didn't give any details about the framework or you didn't talk about this, he brought it back to the $2 billion that's being spent, which I thought was really smart. Like, I don't have details, but here's all this money they were putting behind it, so it seemed genuine. Even as a reporter, I know I'm supposed to like pound him in, but I wanted to believe him because he kept like looking at me and seeming sincere, so it came across really well.
Fantastic.
Also, like, I noticed that when she asked a question, she looked at her, he looked at her. Is that how you're supposed to do it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Right?
like on the camera, it seems like he's lost eye contact.
Okay, so how did that look as those of you who were looking at the screen. When he was answering Vanessa's questions and he was looking at her, were you okay with the fact that it was not directly into the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that. It's the same thing we were talking about with Priya's interview. We were brought into her conversation with her interviewer. I feel like the same sincerity happened there, and there was a hand somewhere. Priya?
But usually, you know, in a setting like that, we were looking at a very close setup here. But usually in a setup like that, you would actually have a bigger view of the audience, and then you can see that the person is actually focusing maybe towards the reporter on this side of the room or that side of the room. So in that context, probably he did a great job. But here we were focusing on just him.
Yeah, and I think it would have been weird if he had looked right into the camera, because
Right.
obviously he's talking, there's someone here with a concern,
Right.
I'm answering their concern. I'm not making a political statement right into the camera. Good, yes, yeah.
I think we answered the question very tactfully and never didn't overpromise. And I don't know if that's something business communication gonna teach, but how to use the language in a perfect, a good way, a better way.
Yeah,
I actually agree with that. You did not overcommit to anything, especially in front of the press, that you were not authorized to commit to.
but
Is that the law
still,
degree coming
I
into
think
play?
that's probably law school.
And I think he didn't have the lecture we talked about earlier to prepare for this, but he did it naturally. He developed his key messages into sound bites and said, we are working to do our best. He mentioned the experts are working on that several times. So the experts are working on that. BP employees live and work in the area, and we are doing our absolute best. So those were key messages boiled down to sound bites, and he did not overcommit.
One thing to say. I know, I mean, when we were talking about this emotional thing, people losing lives, environmental, would you like to see some vocal, right?
Yes, but I think he registered that. I think he did a great job with that last question where he said, there is no doubt this is humanitarian and environmental disaster. And I felt like there were some pauses, there was some slow pace to his language. And to Priya's point, we do not want the same speed. We don't want some sort of analytical answer when we get an emotional question. And I think he did. I think he did well. All right, great. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Alberto, for coming. Look forward to seeing you all next week.
We just have a question
Any
about the
questions?
assignment. We know that there's an assignment due for next week, but we're not sure what that is and how we should